All right, everybody, welcome to the Joe Kilgallon podcast. This is a podcast where I, stand-up comedian Joe Kilgallon, like to sit back, have some drinks with people, and recreate the bar conversations we all know and love. Big shout out to all my YouTube subscribers. I can't do it without you. You guys have been awesome. Thanks for supporting the podcast. As always, thanks to the Patreons. You can subscribe to the Patreon. There's as cheap as a $3 tier. I call it your draft beer tier. Gets you access to all sorts of bonus stuff. I've been doing some Fuck, Marry, Kills with people. A lot of fun doing with Lisa Traeger last week. Comedian who's been on Netflix and Comedy Central. I also have a bonus with former Chicago Cubs and Red Sox and Reds and Marlins pitcher Ryan Dempster, who is an analyst on the MLB Network as well as the Marquee Network covering the Chicago Cubs. Great dude. So yeah, definitely check that stuff out. And now, without further ado, though, I'm very excited for today's guest. One of my oldest friends in stand-up comedy, a man I've known for a very long time. Had the privilege of attending his wedding this past December. One of the greatest weddings. Normally I mute the guest so you can hear him laughing at the bullshit I'm saying. Without further ado, let's bring him on. You saw a little glimpse of him in the intro there. Everyone, welcome to the podcast, CJ Toledano. What's up, dude?
Dude, no, not privilege. We were privileged to have you there.
Stop it, man. That was one of the best weddings of all time.
Man, yeah.
And I'm not bragging, but I've been to the wedding of a Stanley Cup champion, and I feel like you guys... dude, one of the coolest weddings.
I just feel like everyone like when we talked to who was there, like we all must have knew in a small part of our brain that we were about to be locked inside. Cause yeah, that was just like the party of my life or our life. I have no regrets. Like I lost things. I like got hurt. I like hurt my ankle, but I'm like no regrets on how hard we went.
You were shirtless dancing. I remember some good old fashioned shirtless dancing.
2 nights in a row, yeah.
It was such a great time. I love a destination wedding, especially a cool place like Palm Springs. And it was great because it was like a reunion. We were able to see East Coast comics I haven't seen in a while, like, the LA comics I've missed so much, after living in LA I was there for a good 3.5 years. So it's a nice little reunion. And everything was just like, I feel like you guys thought party first. What will be the most memorable party? Obviously, it was beautiful too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, we really were like, we want the people who are coming from out of town to have it be a vacation for them. Like, we've all been invited at wedding cross country or another part of the country where you're like, I don't want to go. Like, I could save money and I could stay home. Like, but like, we wanted it to be worth it for people, whether or not they actually liked us or not.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like. And I viewed it as a vacation, so I'm glad you guys kept that in mind for people. I remember there was a few times where I was throwing a lot of money around where I'm like, I probably should be watching it a little bit, but I'm also like, this is our vacation. The wife and I haven't been away from the kids for a full weekend, like, ever. Yeah. So it was definitely, I'm sure I'll remember stuff throughout. But let's hope that you don't have an incident. And guys, we're jumping right into this. Okay, we're going Jeopardy. We're going Jeopardy style. And you know Jeopardy style, CJ, when you get right into the questions, and then later you get to know the guest. I always like that about Jeopardy. Get the questions, commercial break, hey, what's up? Oh,
great segment producers, yeah.
The best. You and I got into a thing on Twitter about a great movie. You, me, and Connor, right?
Connor Connor Sullivan.
Yeah, Connor Sullivan. I couldn't remember who the third one was, and I'm sorry, Connor, if you're listening, buddy. I just, I'm a very busy man. I've gotten dumber during quarantine. I just really have, because I spend my days talking to a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I've dumbed it down enough.
But a name like Connor Sullivan feels like it should be said on the Joe Kilgallon podcast every episode, whether you know him or not.
It really does, right? And that movie is the movie Castaway.
Yeah.
Now, it's a great movie. I mentioned Tom Hanks' performance, stellar.
Yeah.
I always had a problem with that movie, and that was Helen Hunt's character being one of the biggest piece of shit characters in movie history, if you ask me. She's right up there with Bonnie from Toy Story 4, where she was the ultimate, not on the surface shitty, because there's some characters that are obviously shitty. Scar from Lion King, any killer in a horror movie, clearly bad characters. I bring up Bonnie Hunt, or Helen Hunt, no relation to Bonnie Hunt, I believe.
No.
But I was thinking Bonnie from Toy Story 4, who, by the way, Bonnie Hunt does do a voice in Toy Story 4. I'm all over the place, everyone. I'm excited. Helen Hunt's character is Tom Hanks' wife. Now, listen, when you think your loved one has died, of course you're expected to move on at some point. For those of you who don't know, spoiler alert, Castaway. When Tom Hanks finally gets back to shore, he's gone for 4 years. He finds Helen Hunt, his beloved wife, the woman who kept him going when he was on some island, just clinging to life, losing his shit, talking to a volleyball.
No, he was becoming smarter, becoming more of the world.
He was becoming very worldly. That's true.
Yeah.
And I did find it interesting that his hair got blonder.
I wonder that. That's another tangent, but go ahead. I love this we were getting to.
Save that thought about the blonde thing, because I read another crazy thing recently. That it has to do with the sun. That's what I want you to help me remember the blonde thing. All right, he becomes friends with Wilson the volleyball, and still one of the most heartbreaking scenes in any movie is when Wilson floats away. I still get so sad because that's all he had. You know what I mean? That's why I always get heartbroken when I hear about people being mean to homeless people, or there was a story where some people took like a dog away from a homeless guy because they're like, you can't take care of this dog. I'm like, fuck that. The dog seemed happy with the homeless guy. They were managing. Don't take the only thing he has. Yeah. Anyway, that shit depresses me. And in the movie, it depressed me. But then I'm thinking, all right, he's going to get back together with Helen Hunt. But no, she already married. And your point was, well, dude, I mean, she thought he was dead. And this is where you're a sweetheart of a guy.
I was fine. You know what? I stood by that, and I wasn't going to be deterred from thinking that until you really broke down this timeline, which is just like a movie I've seen 30 times.
Dude, you know what?
And you've almost ruined it. You've made it like a revenge movie now to me.
This is how fucked up my brain was. I used to be really like an insecure guy in the sense that I would joke with my now wife, like, if you ever cheated on me, here's what would happen to you. Crazy shit like that. Like, in the early days when we first started dating, like in high school. I had one buddy, one of my best, still a really good friend of mine, stood up at my wedding, my buddy Duffy. I'm sure he doesn't mind this shout out. He told me that he once told his now wife, who's been with, since they've known each other since grade school, for God's sakes. He told her that if you were to ever cheat on me, I wouldn't do anything to you, but I would kill your entire family.
Oh my God.
That way, every time you thought about your dead family, you know it was because you were a no-good whore. That's what he fucking would say to her, which was nuts. But it was also funny. I mean, it's wrong. I mean, this was like 2002, 2003, everybody. Different times. Clearly, if he said that now, we would all tell her, you got to get out of that relationship. Yeah. But that movie, Castaway, came out around that time period. So I think I had that mentality when I saw it. So I know I'm doing a lot of talking here, but CJ, let me just break down the tweet for all.
Please, no, this is great. It changed my mind. Go ahead.
I did the math on the 4 years he was gone. Now, he gets lost at sea. There's a search. There's hopefully like a rescue attempt. They're looking for him. So they don't know. In my mind, I'm doing this from my point of view, though. Helen Hunt, clearly different. I give you 1 year to grieve. Not 1 year to grieve. 1 year to keep hope alive that he's still alive. One hope in which you're like, no, I refuse to believe he's dead. He's somewhere. We need to.
Yeah.
I won't believe he's dead. Then by the end of that year, you come to grips. All right, he's dead. Now you get a year of grief where you're just like, I can't believe I lost my husband, the love of my life.
At least that's quick. A year is quick in the grief period.
I 100% agree with you. So now we're at 2 years in. And then you get a year to date around. Okay, you're just getting back out there. But even the first 6 months, you're like, I can't. This is just... And no dude wants to commit because it's like, do you want to follow the dude that didn't do anything wrong? He just died. And died in a way there's no closure? Probably
on the news. Probably like they know, everyone around knows who that guy is.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to follow that guy. So a lot of guys are going to be like, all right, I'm going to try to get in there, have a little fun, and then bounce, Doesn't work that way. She ends up, settling down. And by year 4... when he gets back, she's already like happily married to the point where she's like, I can't leave this dude for you, even though you were great, we were great. There was no indication that their marriage sucked, right? Yeah. So in my brain, Helen Hunt should have been like, oh my God, you're back, the love of my life. Hey dude, I've known for a year and some change. Bye. Fucking bye. You'll get over it. You barely knew me. Why the fuck do we get married so soon?
I know. Well, that's the thing is, like, I wish it was a little bit longer to find that story out. And, like, they made out. Obviously, it's a complicated situation. But I also, too, and I didn't watch Sex and the City. That's who that guy, the dentist in Castaway. His biggest role in life is Mr. Big on Sex and the City, right?
Did they call him Big because he was swinging some pipe? Did he have a big dick? Is that what they call him?
I don't know, and I never remember it in my brain when I asked Megan or her friends, and I watched a little bit of Sex and the City, but like I never knew if he was like a good guy or not.
Yeah,
like,
I'm like you. I've seen about 50 episodes of Sex and the
Yeah.
City. I kind of enjoy it while I'm watching it.
No,
but
it's a great sitcom.
Great. I never remember
Yeah.
any parts of it, though, the next time I watch it, I feel like.
Yeah. So I was like, by casting him, are you supposed to, in like his look, are you supposed to assume he's an asshole? And so you're always supposed to side with Tom Hanks in that?
Well, you know, his other big role before that was he was one of the cops on Law and Order Criminal Intent.
That's right. Yeah.
Or maybe it was just regular Law and Order. So I'm kind of thinking, I don't know, he's a dude, he's kind of got like one of those, it's like a Baldwin physique.
Yeah.
Where you're like, you're not fat, but you're not like skinny.
Yeah.
And he's got like a big head. You know, I mean, he seems like a handsome man. He's got like that kind of old Hollywood character.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I guess when he was younger, he was probably a little bit more svelte and like, but yeah, if I liked men, I don't think he would do it for me though. But like, I think people like Big or whatever, Mr. Big.
But do they like him in comparison to Sarah Michelle? No, what the fuck's her name? Sarah Jessica Parker's other dudes?
I don't know.
Is that why? You know?
But no, but you're right. Like, it's got to be a longer conversation.
I think that's what killed me about that movie, because in my head I'm like, she should have just gotten back with him. She should have said to the new guy, look, I know this is insane and this sucks, but I thought he was dead.
Yeah.
I got to at least give me a month with the guy. I don't know. I just, it was heartbreaking that he gets back home and now it's like, all right, what do I do next? Well, deliver this fucking package, I guess.
Oh, wait, but with that woman, was there something with the woman, do you think?
They kind of give an indication that, so remember he's at an intersection.
Yeah.
And there's different this, that, and then the woman who he talks to, it's like, oh, I tried to deliver your package. That's what it's implied. I think they have, the idea is that he now has endless possibilities in his life. You know, he now has freedom. I could go down this road, that road. I could talk to her. Like, there's just, even though the life as he knew it is gone, you know, but he now lives to, like, a new horizon, I guess they're trying to tell you, like. But it's just weird for you as the viewer, because you put yourself in Tom Hanks' situation. What would I do? How would I survive on this island doing all I can to get home to my wife and to the life I had?
Well, not wife yet, but
Oh yeah, that's right. They
were going to have the conversation.
That's right.
It's all, yeah, I mean, that's what makes it even more heartbreaking. Is just like they weren't even there yet. And I guess that was a little bit of the credit they're giving Helen Hunt's character to move on, because like in their eyes in that last conversation, you're like, they're probably going to get married, right? And so she's prepping herself. It's time to settle down. And that's the only check mark for me for her to like get married so quickly, is that she knows she is personally very ready. And maybe the questions going through her head as she was dating that dude was like, I can't wait around for another guy. The last guy died in a plane crash. You know, so that's the only with that timeline you've described is the only reasoning for me to think that's okay.
You make a good point. I forgot. I thought they were married for some reason. They didn't have any kids. She didn't have kids with the new guy, right?
No.
See, again, that's still enough where I'm like, let's get this shit annulled. I don't know. That's what kills me, because there was no closure between them other than her just moving on to another guy.
Yeah. But they kissed. So like,
it was a good kiss. It was in the rain.
Yeah, in the rain kiss. Tom Hanks, Helen Hunt, like those are the 90s romantic comedy feel good movie characters, and they're kissing in the rain. We don't appreciate that movie enough.
Yeah, no, that was a great movie. I wish if they were kissing like in the snow, it'd be like, yeah, fuck it. They don't belong together. But the rain, something about the rain.
Yeah.
Because the rain is like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to get wet for you. And then water is sexual, I feel like. Water is the thing of life, right? We all need water.
And he got dropped off by a cab, and like they sat in the Jeep. Oh my God. Yeah, that shit is like, that's good. That's some good movie making.
It really is. Now, I want to mention this. We talked about your wedding. I was at your beautiful bride, comedian Megan Gailey, everybody, who you do a podcast with. We can talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
I was at the bachelorette party. Now, I've talked about this a million times on the podcast. Maybe not a million, but 4 or 5 times. Megan was on the podcast like a month or so ago. It was a fun time. It was slightly awkward being the only guy. Should have done security, you and her idea. I threw a guy. That was a lot of fun.
Dude, yeah, awesome. Thank
But
you.
here's part of the bachelorette party that I've never talked about on a podcast, and that's they were playing these games.
Yep.
So listeners who are, I don't know what my demographics are, but my male listeners, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but women at bachelorette parties played games.
Yeah.
They also take a lot of pictures. There are like no pictures at bachelor parties, rarely. You might see one or two, but it's unlikely. And they give each other gifts, which I felt like a real dick. I didn't know that. Everyone's giving Megan gifts, and I'm standing there like, I didn't fucking know about a gift. Why would you give someone a gift? I thought this was a party. I didn't, like, it's not your birthday.
Yeah.
What are you, 12? Like, why are we giving you gifts? And they're all like, that's standard. Anyway, but it's funny because Lisa Traeger was on the podcast last week. Toward the end of the night, they were like, you have to make sure Megan gets home safe. That's your gift. And I'm like, well, I would have done that anyway. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I would have left early going, find your own way home. I got you a fucking sweater. Like, I'm not. But one of the games was trivia questions about you.
Yeah.
And Megan got them all right, except one question, which I got
I
right.
don't. What? Okay. Well, yeah. What is it? Tell me.
Who was your first girlfriend? You don't mind me saying, do you?
No, you can't. You can say.
Mo Welch. Who's
Yeah,
awesome. I'm going to get her on the podcast soon.
There's debate on whether or not we were actually boyfriend girlfriend, but yeah, we dated.
Either way, that was the answer you gave. I got it right.
Yeah.
And then the very next question, which Megan did get correct, the question was, what is CJ's favorite movie? You could say it. Go ahead.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Which is also my favorite movie.
Yeah.
So right when I answered that one, I was like, maybe CJ and I have something special here. Maybe.
That'd be like a very progressive romantic comedy.
But you know what's funny about very progressive. But you know what's funny about that? I feel like if someone were going to cast a male Megan Gailey, I'm not saying I'd get the part. I'm not saying I'd get the part, but I'd be on the call sheet.
Oh, you would.
I would read for it for sure.
You know how Hollywood works. It would be yours to lose. They would bring in other people to be like, beat Joe. Good luck. It's Joe's part, but like we want to see it.
I know how Hollywood works. They would give it to Andrew Santino, even though he has brown eyes. But yeah,
I mean, I shout out to you for doing that. Like, I didn't even know that you would like be security for them, and like people were telling me. I was in the hospital that day because I had torn a bunch of ligaments in my ankle playing basketball at my bachelor party, which again, very romantic comedy style wedding and like bachelor party because we had it on the same weekend, and she was taking a nap. And apparently I was posting stories of me in the ER, in the emergency room, or at the hospital, and people woke up Megan where it was like, CJ's in the hospital. And I was like, which is
terrifying to hear.
Yeah, terrifying. But
now let me ask you this: were you fouled hard? How did you break your ankle playing basketball?
Dude, no. If it was because I was being fancy and an idiot. What happened was there was a running bit that I always scored the game winner in every game, and it was day 2 of the trip, and we were playing some morning games and we were drinking beers. Everyone who was invited to my bachelor party were the Saturday morning basketball guys that used to play in.
Yeah,
like people who
that so much.
Yeah, I mean, we all do now. I mean, but so like we were just kind of joking around. We're a little drunk, but playing 5-on-5. We rented out this giant cabin with a full court basketball court, and Zach Pugh like shot a 3, and I saw it gonna hit off the rim. It was like Rodman in The Last Dance, where he was like, if it hits that part of the rim, I know where to go. And so I ran like from half court, and I was like, I'm gonna get the rebound and like pretend to dunk it. And I made the putback, but then the court right where the hoop is, it ends, and it's like maybe like this much. What is this, like 7-inch drop off, and my ankle just slid from the court down. It just it was the worst feeling ever.
Yeah, dude, I broke my ankle like way back when, so whenever I hear any leg injuries, it just always makes me damn, that sucks. Dude, you pulled a Derrick Rose basically. You went up, came down, and it just...
Yeah, I mean, think about that. Like, you know how much I love basketball. I then was out from playing basketball for about 6 months, and then I had a few weeks where I had come back, felt good, getting back into it, and then the pandemic hit. And so I'm like, it's getting close to a year of non-consistent basketball.
Which is crazy for you because you were
Yeah.
definitely like the biggest basketball fan I know.
Yeah.
And I miss it. Yeah, you organized this great game every Saturday in Silver Lake at a grade school that we'd get kicked off of sometimes.
Yeah.
Never forget that shit. I remember one time they were telling us to leave because there were soccer games going on or something. And then they had people parking their cars, which they never used a lot for cars.
And there were so many other spots to park. It's such an LA thing of like, we are entitled, because we have the first right to these spots, we're going to use them.
I don't know if you were there for it or if you were off working for the Detroit Pistons when you remember you were doing that. But they were doing that thing where we were playing for a little bit and then they were giving us the boot. And then I saw Casey Affleck.
Oh my
his
God.
kid was playing soccer.
Yeah.
And then I remember going, are we getting fucking kicked off the basketball court because Casey Affleck? I was like, I'm going to fight Casey Affleck. Today's the day.
Yeah.
And I have nothing against Casey Affleck personally. I guess he's was a Me Too guy where people would say he's a scumbag. So maybe that would have been great for my career if I just beat the shit out of one of those dudes.
Yeah, you had the green light. You got to remember that. That's why you got to know those stories.
Well, it just felt like one of those things where I'm like, oh, famous people's kids
Yeah.
are playing fucking soccer, and therefore we can't play basketball. Oh, look at this classist bullshit. That's what it just felt like. Because I was, But what killed me for those games? So I came my first year in LA, 2014 to halfway through 2015. I played like almost every Saturday.
Yeah.
Even played hungover. Mm-hmm. Long
The
time
story
podcast
that-
listeners
yeah.
know that story. I've told it on the podcast.
I love hearing it, whether I'm tagged in the tweet about it or not. I'm tuning in for the whole thing because I just love reminiscing about that.
Yeah, I had Ryan Dalton on, and he brought it up last time. It's always better when someone else brings it up.
Yeah.
And I always bring it up whenever I get the Facebook memory of that hilarious picture of me like laying on that bench. Because it was the smallest bench. It was like 7 inches wide. Big guys wouldn't even send that bench to chance, and I'm like laying on it, and it looks like there's vomit beneath me, but I think it was just someone spilled water. But yeah, man, dude, my hangover game was much like Jordan's flu game, where I just showed up, I put in buckets, and I got boards. I played D. I did all I could to just get back so I could lay down.
In the flu game feat, I don't know if you've ever mentioned it, but like one of the most impressive feats is that you got over the fence.
Oh, that's right.
The fence was like maybe 9 feet tall at least, and you gotta. It's always the swing. The swinging the leg over is like the big leap in faith you gotta take, and a lot of times it's not successful. Like your balls can get caught on that point, and so to be as fucking hungover as you were, man, you puked several times. I call this jetpack puking. And it's based on Megan because it's like the puking where you're on the ground and it's just so forceful that your body just levitates just a little bit. And Megan did it once early in the pandemic, and that was what you did that day.
You're reminding me about the fence. So everyone who's not really getting what we're saying, we'd play basketball
An illegal
at this
game.
grade school, and they had like 4 or 5 rims, so it was fun to play there because you could get multiple games going. They would, it's a Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, basically. What would we get there, like 11:30?
Yeah.
It was all locked up, so you had to climb the fence. And depending on where you parked, there was an easy way to get over or a hard way to get over.
Yeah.
Because on the one side of the street, I forget the name of the street now, you had to you can almost, I don't know, you go off like one little thing. It was almost like a little cement thing that you could kind of jump off of and makes the jump easier. But then if you went on the one side that was where the courts were, you're right. It was, you were playing a dangerous game with your nuts, And not bragging, I have big feet. I wear like a size 13. So those links in the gate were never friendly to me. I always hated climbing that.
Yeah.
Even stone cold sober and excited to play, I was nervous going over that.
No, there's got to be some comedian who talks about it, but like going over the fence, starting in your late 20s, it's just like you can really change your day if you're excited, your friends are on the other side, and it's a fence that is a little too tall. I'd be like, hey, I'll catch up with you guys later. It's like it's that much of a feat to get over that.
It'll scar you though too if you hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really good friend. I remember growing up. He got he got hurt climbing a fence.
Yeah.
He like a way a skateboarder would hurt themselves. And after that, he was done. I mean, that was when we were like 7 or 8. And I lived in the same block as this kid. So we hung out through, 13, 14 years old before going into high school. And there were times where climbing a fence was necessary, whether it was Halloween and we were running from the authorities are from other kids. And I'm like, dude, hop the fence. He'd be like, nah, I'm not doing it. And it was in his brain. He would never hop a fence again. It was real psychological shit. But that you mentioned that, you're saying some other comedian must have mentioned this fence thing. I am now flashing back to Sarah Silverman was on either a talk show or a podcast, something where it's video, because I remember watching the interview, where she mentioned, she's like, yeah, I play basketball with a bunch of other comedians on Saturdays, and you have to like climb a fence to get there. And I'm like, that sounds like my game, but I don't see Sarah Silverman there.
It wasn't.
It was another game. Okay, I didn't know she played once.
Game.
It was like, I play every week and lying to the American public.
I think she might have played, and a few outdoor games I'd heard of. And then some other. I watched that Pistol Shrimps documentary, a little bit of it. Did you remember hearing about that?
No, I didn't.
There's a women's basketball league out here that's mostly comprised of comedians, producers, industry people.
I saw the trailer, but I've not seen it. Yeah, okay.
And she has a few parts in that where she talks about some Saturday games that I don't know about.
There was one game at like Pan Pacific Park or something like that, I think.
That was another spot.
Over there?
Poinsettia, too.
Oh, Poinsettia, maybe I'm thinking it might be a fence.
I don't know.
But kind of was in a game over there.
Yeah.
Either way, though, man, let's go back to Ferris Bueller for a second or two. And then I do want to get into some basketball with you and some House of Highlights questions I got for you.
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off to me is, my favorite movie. I enjoy it so much and love it so much that when I find out people don't like it, I do judge them.
Yeah.
Is that my own thing, or are you like that too?
No, I am like you. I just don't understand it. It's like, it's the perfect balance of you resonate with the character or any of the characters, but it's also as absurd as a movie can get, It's like you want a movie to dramatize events or like the funniest, most sensationalized version of things, but then to also be able to relate to that and like watch it multiple times and relate to Ferris, to Cameron, to Sloane, to his sister, to his parents. Like, when a movie makes me feel differently with every viewing, it's good. So I'm like, if you can't find an entry point in that movie, I think you're clinically insane.
I would agree, and I also think there are some people that we know these movie snobs. Because you're a big movie guy. You see a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I like movies, but I don't consider myself a movie buff. There was a time in my life where I was like obsessively like, let's go to the movies all the time, like every weekend. But those, with kids, it's almost impossible too. But I think there are these movie snobs that they go into a movie looking to not like it. And I'll say his name. I've said his name on the podcast before. It's comedian Adam Burke. He's been on the podcast a couple times. Everyone listening, longtime listeners will know what I'm talking about. Look up Adam Burke. He's a great comedian, like unbelievably funny. But when it comes to this, man, it got serious. And people were like, Joe, come on, dude. What are you not going to be friends with Burke? You guys are really good buddies. You're not going to be friends with him over this. I go, listen, how could I trust him ever again? Say I'm on a show with him, CJ. Say we're on the same lineup together at the Laugh Factory in Chicago. I'm coming from another club. I'm coming from like up the street. I'm coming from Zany's or somewhere. And he just gets off stage and we're about to go on. I say to him, hey, how is the crowd? I can't trust him because I know he doesn't like Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
First of all, don't set me up to ether our good friend Adam Burke.
No, I saw you on Bridenstine's podcast with him, right? He was on the panel with you?
Yeah.
Every time I see him on that panel, I fucking text Bridenstine going, this shit's on purpose, right? You're right. You guys talk about me? Talk about Ferris? By the way, Adam, if you're listening, you know I fucking love you. I actually texted him a couple days ago. We're cool, but this is really, we'll never be as cool as we were.
No, I'm gonna, next time I see Adam, I'm probably gonna ask him about it. And there are some other people who I really respect. Old time Conan writer I've seen him. I just follow him. I'm such a big fan of his on Twitter, and there were some old comedy message boards he used to interact with people on, and he's like known for being the most positive, nice guy. And he was also at Conan when I was interning there. Has helped me in my career, and I saw him tweet multiple times like the one thing that all people love, but I don't, is Ferris Bueller. And that was always such a wild, because he lived in Chicago, loves Chicago. And there will be a time when I go on Twitter and I go, hey, Brian, I don't know if you remember me, and I'm just going to write an essay about Ferris Bueller because I don't understand.
Especially if you love Chicago, because John Hughes has stated that Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a love letter to the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
I downloaded the song Big City Now Now. I can't remember who wrote it or who sings it. That scene where they're going to downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
I made sure to have downtown Chicago footage as the new intro to this podcast. It's weird. Here's let's focus more on Ferris than I guess Chicago.
Okay.
I look at Ferris Bueller as the ultimate cool guy because even the assistant principal or the principal's secretary says everyone loves him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Yep.
And you being a big John Hughes fan, you have a tattoo everywhere. Dude, tell me about the tattoo you got.
I got, I don't know.
It on the camera.
It honestly faded a little bit. Hold on, let me see what the best, there we go, a little bit. So it's the font of Ferris Bueller, of John Hughes. It says a John Hughes film in the font that it appeared in the credits of Ferris Bueller.
Yes, so cool.
Yeah.
So John Hughes said that I wanted to write a movie about the coolest person I could think of that everyone loves. Yeah. And that's what was cool about because it was a character that, yes, of course, every character has flaws. Now, Adam Burke's whole thing about not liking Ferris Bueller's Day Off was because he was a dick of a friend. Being like he was shitty to Cameron, and he thinks he could get away with everything, and he's your typical suburban rich kid, and so symbolic of the 1980s culture of, blah, 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 Reagan era and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you're reading too much into a 90-fucking-minute comedy from John Hughes that came out in 1985. And it was embarrassing that some people were even agreeing with him. And I noticed all the people agreeing with him, I'm like, I just finally commented on this one crazy thing where I'm like, I'm sorry you guys all had a shitty time in high school, all right? It's not Ferris's fault. He would not have been shitty to you. He was great to everybody. Remember when people were answering the payphone? There's Bueller. That dude's getting me out of summer school. Yeah. He didn't need to get freshmen out of summer school, but he was a good guy like that,
Well, you know what? I think some people, I am remembering sort of this conversation that I've had with former friends. Megan has told me a little bit about this, but she doesn't think it's bad, but and maybe you relate to this. We are such, I will say this for myself, I'm a dumbass, but I'm a dumbass, I'm stupid, I've done some stupid shit.
You're not stupid.
I'm not that smart, but man, what a great life I have. I've married Megan, very beautiful lady, very accomplished, and I have a good job that I'm grateful for, and it's a dream job. But man, you saw me during this time in college, would take out student loans and not go to class. I would show up late to work and just be an idiot, but I always had in my head, I was like, it'll work out. I'll just throw a little bit of charm on it. I'll be slick and funny, and people will be like, oh, that's a good guy to be around. And I think Ferris is I was probably inspired by a Ferris Bueller type character, oh, just charm them. That'll save you. And man, it kind of has. We've gotten places by just being funny and likable and fun to have a conversation with.
Do you believe in the law of attraction?
Well, remind me exactly what it is.
Okay, well, I'll differentiate because it's not, there are two things. There's The Secret, which I think is kind of stupid and bullshit. And then there's the law of attraction. Well, The Secret is derived from the law of attraction. But remember that Secret book or documentary was really popular. Oprah pushed it 15, 20 years ago or something. And every now and then people would bring it up. The Secret is just think and visualize and it'll happen. Not really, you do have to put the work in. And you always did put the work in though, because I remember one time me and you were coming from a gig and we were going to the Laugh Factory. And I was like, oh, I'm going to the Laugh Factory because Ahmed was performing and I had met him a few times when we were friends. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go see Ahmed. He's in town. And some of my other friends that I know through Ahmed were going to be there. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go check this out. I go sit in the back row with my friends who were watching Ahmed. Then they go, we have a special guest, CJ Toledano. And I'm like, well, I fucking drove him here. He didn't mention he was going on stage. How did this work out?
I don't remember those circumstances, but that is a very Ferris Bueller type thing.
But you put yourself out there and you would put the work in. So even though you had the mentality of this will all work out. So anyway, everyone, the law of attraction is essentially you attract what you believe, but you also have to put work into it. So the law of attraction does believe in you put work in. It's what you focus on, you can achieve, if that's your everyday focus.
Well, and two, it's that can always backfire, and it's backfired for me in early in my career. I was just talking to someone about this recently of again, I had that thought. I'd be like, oh, I'll skip all these classes and I'll just go to open mics and I'll write packets and teach myself how to write for TV. And when I was 23, I got hired for Fallon, and I got there, and the job, I wasn't ready to back up my insane plan to get this job, But I remember just secreting everything. You talk about that. I liked that mentality. I didn't know. I only knew just the one idea of thinking of just pretend you're gonna get it. Pretend you actually.
No, I definitely have
Yeah.
learned more and more than that works. I've only
Yeah.
kind of read into it over the last like couple years, like 2 years or so. I've kind of been like,
Mm-hmm.
because I started coming across like people, the phrase law of attraction I never really heard of until like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 years ago. Anyway, and then I kind of dismissed it, and then more and more things came up where people were saying the things that were in regards to the process of the law of attraction.
Yeah.
You know, like only focus on what you can control and all this kind of stuff. And for people listening who aren't like really sure, Michael Jordan's a great example of that. In The Last Dance, there were so many examples of him being the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Just being present, and my only focus was winning. And that's why he won. That's all he worked towards, was winning. That's all he thought about. He visualized winning. He saw the shot before the shot happened. He did all this. And there was a great part where some reporter said that Michael Jordan is the most present human being that he's ever come across, and he thinks ever.
Wow.
Because he asked Michael once, do you ever get nervous about missing a shot? And Michael's response was, why would I worry about missing a shot I haven't taken yet? And that blew the guy's mind. And it kind of blew my mind as I heard it, because it doesn't sound that deep, but when you think about it, it's deep. And he wasn't trying to be deep. He was just like, oh, I don't think about missing, because why would I think about doing something, like I haven't even taken the shot yet, so how could I think about missing? So in his brain, he only thinks about missing after the ball's released, and at that point, he still believes he's going to make it leading up to it. It's just one of those weird things. And when you have this mentality where you're like, oh, it's all going to work out, I just always believed it'd work out. The people I meet who are like that, do you know who I know? Everyone I know who's broke, they hate money. They always talk about, fuck money, money's bullshit, I hate money, I hate money. And I'm like, well, that's why you're broke, kind of. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like you kind of carry that mentality with you.
Yeah.
In a sense, like, you know, if you're negative all the time, people are going to be a dick to you. If you're positive all the time, people are going to be positive to you. I do believe there is something to that.
Yeah, it was always that, like, also too, like a what if mentality. I'm like, what if I, you know, if you putting it in basketball terms, like, oh, what if I made the shot? And you think about that more, like what it looks like to make the shot, or also too of just like routine of like, just do it so many times that this shot doesn't feel any different, or you're able to just like switch in your brain. I'm like, this is a last shot, but it's also a shot I've taken every part of this game. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's like what some of the greats do, is really can like downplay the moment in their head, because also they know on the other side of it could be this monumentous celebration.
It is interesting, right? Like, I think, like the winners always think about the celebration and the party and like that moment, right?
Yeah.
And the people who have failed, because there are great basketball players. I think of James Harden as one of those guys. He's like my latest example of a guy who could drop in any regular season game. I feel like if someone said to him, go out there and score 50, he could do it. But in the playoffs, you see him passing more, you see him not taking his normal shot, or he doesn't adjust to the circumstance. It's one of those weird things where I feel like those other guys who just have that cutthroat. I know that gets overused in sports, that whole killer instinct, and people used to use it to bash LeBron, which I always thought was unfair. But anyway, let's talk about your job, though. And that's one of another thing I've always respected you, not just as friends, but as someone, just like as a person who, you know, in similar work, I guess, and the fact that being a comedian is such a big risk to take. But you also have had other jobs. I call them like dream jobs, I guess.
Yeah, no,
because you're almost like a professional 14-year-old in the sense that every job you've done, and you've always had this kind of like fun, like, I just want to eat pizza and hang out, you know, mentality. Pizza, you're a big pizza guy. Everyone's like pizza.
Everyone loves pizza. It's so insane. Like, I wanted to shed that a few times in my life, but people are like, yeah, he loves pizza. It's like, what do you mean? You love pizza. Everyone loves pizza. Why am I the pizza comedian?
I agree. Everyone does love pizza, but for some reason, you got that label.
Well, I think it just, I look like, I act like I'm a Ninja Turtle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But then dude, all these things I'm saying are positives, and I don't want you to ever lose them.
No, I've really
become a
started to
dad
own
one
them.
day. Own it. Don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to see you. I don't want you to become a dad where all of a sudden you're dressing different. Not that you would. Not that you would, but I would.
It's gonna take a lot. I think we're far gone from ever like being normal, or whatever the standard is.
I wouldn't want you to be, and I'm sure Megan wouldn't want you to be either.
Yeah.
But your job, you're late. So you've had a job where you were You ran the Detroit Pistons social media for Funny or Die. Mm-hmm. Amazing gig. You wrote for Fallon, as you mentioned earlier. And before Fallon, I think you were an intern for Conan, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crazy. You were the head writer for a Korean late night talk show?
Man,
or was it Filipino?
No, it was Korean.
Okay.
Yeah, it was such a great experience, and I love everyone who were involved with that show.
And the office you worked at had a great bathroom that I used to shit in?
Oh, and I used to shit in that one because it was a single stall, or no, it was just like a room. It was a private bathroom.
There'd be a timer on the light, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, I took longer dumps in there sometimes, so if you were, I turned the light on where you had to wind it a little bit, the one.
Yeah.
But I used to work in the same, like across the parking lot from CJ.
Yeah, in Culver City.
Culver City. I was a production assistant at Tosh.0, and CJ was head writer for a Korean talk show. And then you went from there to Bleacher Report.
I went from it was Korean talk show to Detroit, and then Bleacher Report.
That's
yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, cool job, blending sports and comedy, your two worlds.
Yeah.
And now tell everyone what you're working on.
I'm the creative director for House of Highlights, which is a very similar job to Bleacher Report, but it's kind of more premium content, more than just like filming, trick shots with your phone. But yeah, I mean, it's really wild to realize that, to remember that's what I do.
So I was listening to your podcast, The Greatest That You Do with Megan Gailey. Everyone check it out. Megan and CJ host a weekly podcast in which they have guests on and they talk about like the greatest stadium food or the greatest like sports movies, I think one of them was. And with the last episode, I think you had one today, I haven't checked, but the one previously with Omar, whose last name I forget.
Raja.
Omar Raja.
Yeah.
The founder and the creator of House of Highlights.
Yeah.
Who, man, very impressive dude. I didn't realize he was that young. What is he, 25?
Yeah, he just turned 25, I think last month.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, he founded it, and like we met at Bleacher Report. Because I first went to work at Bleacher Report, and then I left to move back here to LA and I ended up working at the NFL. And then Omar's account that Bleacher Report had bought a couple years before that had just blown up, got bigger than Bleacher Report in terms of following. And they were like, we want to make original content. We're going to do a Twitter show and we need hosts. And so I remained close with Omar, and like, we've just been friends since when I first got over to Bleacher Report. And he was just like, yeah, come join the team. Him and this, my current boss, Doug, who just like, again, like really crazy skill set that I have. And not many people recognize it and like give it credit, but like all it takes is a couple people with an opportunity to to give it to somebody who can run with it, and that's what's happened over there.
You have a smart approach with things though, because I remember I tried to get a job with Bleacher Report, and you gave me some tips on like the writing packet. You showed me an example of one of yours, and yours was like, oh, cool, like he put some like pictures in the packet. He showed some visualization. It wasn't just like bullet points of this. You did things to make it stand out. And I'm like, see, I never would have thought to do that. Because again, I'm that side of the entertainment world I still never even figured out of like, I always thought like things had to be like the right font and the right this.
Right.
Of course, there's a structure to it if you're doing like a screenplay. But with some stuff like that, I think you do want to like stick out a little bit. Because again, so many submissions.
Yeah, that's really what you got to think about is like, imagine you're not even just like don't even think about it as like a boss in a entertainment writing position. Imagine it as a boss at like a Target who has to go through applications, and all the applications look the same. All the names look the same. Everyone's saying they're hardworking or whatever. Like you have like a second to stick out, and so you have to figure out how to stick out or stand out, and then once they're spending a few more seconds on it, you have to like back up that trick you sort of pulled on them. And so it's like that's the thing, is like we know so many funny people that they're all good, but like what's that one trick to get people to read your packet and fall in love with your shit? And there's this other guy, this old Chicago comedy writer. He wrote on I think maybe like Rick and Morty and some other stuff, but he was just like all of his ideas were ideas that he wanted the people reading it to go, I want to make that. Not is this person funny? It's like, I'm going to hire this person so we have the ownership to make that sketch.
Yeah.
Or do that joke.
Now, did you just instinctually know that, or did you learn that trick from someone or something?
It was just like obsessing over podcasts and like getting books, and I used to always love watching anything I loved. I watched the credits because I wanted to know who the directors are. I wanted to know who the producers were and the writers, and I would write those names down, or I'd remember them, and I would go to their IMDb and see what else they made, or just like see if they were on like if you go on the podcast app, you can just type in a name of someone you like, and you can hear 40 like if someone likes me or you, they can just type in a name, and our podcast would come on there, all the podcasts we've been on, and and people want to talk about stories, and also you can sense people's sensibilities, or just like their stories about trying to make it. And I think it was just combining all that stuff and figuring out a system that worked for me.
Everything you're saying, by the way, is textbook law of attraction.
Really?
Think about it. Think about it. You were focusing on all this stuff. You were obsessively focusing on how do you get that. Like you were saying that you were reading the books. You were podcasts, like any interview, any like nugget of information you could get on how to get into that world you were doing. So you were taking over to all the steps. You just weren't vision boarding it or whatever the fuck they do.
Right.
Like, I don't know, maybe you were. Maybe CJ had a big poster where it's like you sitting right behind Fallon or something like that.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Remember it's another Tom Hanks classic, Catch Me If You Can.
Great movie.
Like when he was conning all these people, I know it's like, it's dramatized or it's, exaggeration, but man, I was like, yeah, if you could pass that law exam, then you can be a lawyer. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, you can really fake it till you make it in a lot of stuff. Have I been exposed on certain things? Yes.
Okay, but, well, you mentioned working for Fallon and you felt like you weren't ready for that job.
Yeah.
Could you give everyone, because I'm sure a lot of people have no idea how to even get into that world. I know so many people who are just like, I know people who we know who've worked in this as a comedian for 10 years who are like, how the fuck do you do any of this stuff?
Yeah.
How can you give us the process of getting hired by Jimmy Fallon?
Yeah, and this is one I don't know if I can recommend, but it's crazy. But I was interning at Conan, again, and I was an old intern. Like 23 is old. Like you graduate college at what, like 21, 22?
22, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back a little bit though.
Yeah.
Because I want to be thorough enough.
Okay,
Dude, I hate it when I'm listening to something and they'll be like, oh, well, so, I was working on, someone asked me a question about one thing and then they started by something already awesome.
Yeah.
How did you get the internship for Conan?
So JP Buck, the current booker, he books stand-ups on the show.
I know JP.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And he came through Chicago to watch some comics. And I didn't do that great on the show. And
this was at the Lincoln Lodge in Chicago, right?
At the Lincoln Lodge, yeah.
I remember.
And yeah, like he was coming around, he was watching, there was like a showcase and I had done it. And I remember not feeling great about my set. And I remember like Geary was like, hey, and I like asked Geary, I was like, oh, what did JP Buck think? In my head thinking like, did he, we're like, did they love me or whatever? And like, I think Geary was like, oh, he liked you and he feels like, if you keep working on it, like it could be something. Who knows if that's true or not? And I was like, can I get his email? And Geary gave me his email. And so I asked him what he thought and just like got him on the hook for like an email exchange. And then I was like, hey, I'm a college kid. I need an internship. Do you think you could recommend me for an internship at Conan? He's like, yeah, sure, why not? If you come out to LA, I'll recommend you. And I went out to LA. Like, and I was like, yeah, I'll move if I can get this job. And I got the job. And so I moved to LA and I was just an intern, man. I thought I was like going to be the script intern where I'm with the writing staff all the time. You're not allowed in the room with the writing staff.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I wasn't the script intern. I was a general intern, so I was just we had to wait in the kitchen with all these kids who were hooked up by their parents who are like producers in town. Like we had famous kids who were the other interns, and you just had to sit there and wait for someone to say, hey, can you go grab lunch or whatever. But my crazy dumbass is like that my favorite writer, Dan Cronin, is right there. I'm just gonna walk into his office and ask him does he want a coffee or something. So I started doing that, and I got in trouble. I got in
Why?
trouble. They were
Who
like,
got you?
my
I'm
boss.
sorry, the boss did. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if Dan got you in trouble or Dan's like,
No.
what's this kid bothering me for? All right, cool. Because that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, and so, but then like I was able to like get him coffee enough, and I told him I was from Chicago, did stand up, and then also too, like my boss, the coordinator, he also yelled at me because he found 15 copies of my 30 Rock spec script left in the copier. And it's just like, one, you're not allowed to like use office supplies like that, and two, like, what are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to show that you want to write on TV, which is another fucked up thing about internship, is like, you're not supposed to show that you want a position, like a better position than this.
Dude, I had that where, just a real quick side thing, because I want to focus on how you got Fallon. I was, when I moved out to LA in 2014, it was a hookup. My buddy Steve Byrne had a sitcom called Sullivan and Son, and it was on TBS. It did like 3 seasons, but I was a stand-in for which was a great gig. It was my first gig. It got me into SAG. It was such easy work, and you got to hang out with cool people and everything like that. One of the for the final season, there was one of the showrunners, because they had like a showrunner for the first 2 seasons, and he went to go work on another thing. This guy, I forget his name, FJ Pratt, that's his name. Really nice guy. He then saw me at the Ice House in Pasadena like 6 months after the show was canceled. And I killed, dude. I had to really fucking just destroyed that room. It was a sold out show, and I was just on that night. And he comes right up to me going like, Joe. And I'm like, hey. He's like, I didn't know you did stand up. I just thought you were a stand-in, like someone trying to be an actor or something like that. I'm like, oh no, yeah, I do stand up. You know, that's how I know Steve. I used to feature for him and stuff like that. And you know, I've worked with Roy Wood Jr. and you know, I used to feature for him on the road a little bit. And they're like, why didn't you say to any of us, hey, I'm a comedian? I would have written you a line. I'm like, because that's not how it's done. Like,
it's just like,
I can't walk up to you and be like, hey, write me a line over a fucking bagel, like at the craft service table. It's just, I don't know.
It's a really tightrope, like, little dance. You gotta be careful.
But I feel like you have been able to know that moment and seize upon it. I had another moment on Sullivan and Son. There was a barbecue I'll just fucking say the story. I don't think I've ever told this on the podcast, but Steve Byrne had a barbecue, and Vince Vaughn was there. And Vince Vaughn was one of the executive producers, and he was asking everyone, "What'd you guys think of this scene or whatever?" Because they had a schedule where Thursday, Friday, weekend off, then Monday, Tuesday. I think Tuesday night was like the shoot night, and so there was still time to fix anything with the script. And they asked everybody, and they were like, "Oh, it's great. I think the script's strong this week. Yeah, good script." And then but I didn't think that. I thought the script needed definite some big work in Act 3. And I remember I'm like, oh fuck, if he asks me, I can't be honest. I'm gonna want to be honest, but I can't because they're all saying it's great. And so it came to me, and he's like, Joe, what do you think? And I'm like, yeah, it's good. And dude, the whole drive home, I was like, fucking, dude, I was just so pissed at myself, man. And it was, it's crazy too, dude. And I hate to even get sad with it. On the way to this barbecue, I found out Dan Ronan died. It was the day we found out Ronan died. So I think I had so much going on in my brain that I just felt, even with the way I answered, I felt not confident. It would be one thing if I was confidently like, yeah, it's great, it's strong this week. Because I think he knows I was holding back. So I think Vince Vaughn was like, I think there's something there that he didn't want to say because of this, which is even worse. I'd rather him think I'm either confident one way or another, no matter what the answer, confident. But instead I was like, yeah, it's fine, when I really didn't believe it was fine. I believed they needed major work. And
you know what, you shouldn't beat yourself up for that, because it truly is a gamble. You know, some showrunners, some of these higher ups, they can really take that poorly, you know. And that's why it's all luck. It's a lot of this stuff I did was a gamble, but like, yeah, I should have been fired for the script thing, for like printing out my script and all that other shit, or walking in. But like, I still was like, when I would get in the room, I would always have something to back it up with. Like when I started talking to these writers about wanting to be a talk show writer, I would come in with like pages of sample desk pieces and all that shit, and like showed the work in front. Someone wasn't wasting their time. Like at a certain point, you go, oh, this person actually really wants to do it, and I'm being the dick. If I'm like, get out of here, dude, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, that.
So how did Fallon come about then? You mentioned Dan Cronin getting in trouble, leaving 30 Rock packets.
So just hustling at Conan, unpaid or whatever, And then I saw that there was a Paley Center, which is like kind of like it's like the TV archive museum, and they throw a lot of like TV events, panels, and whatnot. And they're doing the Paley Center Festival in Fallon, which was I think like a year and a half, 2 years old at that point. They were coming to LA to give this big panel talk. I got a ticket for it, and I was like, you never know what could happen. I'm gonna have a packet ready for Late Night with Jimmy Fallon with jokes written in Jimmy's voice and new sketches and whatever. And I'm just going to have it on me just in case. And they gave a talk. It was all the writers, producers, and Jimmy. And like it was a great event. And at the end of it, people were hanging out. Like the writers were coming off and producers were coming off and hanging on the stage. And everyone had flocked to Jimmy because no one knows who the fuck these people are. But I recognized the EP at the time, Michael Shoemaker, legendary SNL producer. But like because of my nerdum for comedy, I knew who he was and what he looked like. So I went up to him and I was like, hey man, I work at Conan. And he's like, in his head, he's like, oh, this guy works at, like he like gets paid. He must be a producer or whatever. I'm name dropping. I'm like, yeah, this person, these are all people I got coffee for, maybe said one word to. He's like, that's awesome that you know these people. Like, I love those guys because they all used to, because Conan's show was at 30 Rock for a very long time. And so then at the end of the conversation, it's wrapping up and I'm like, hey man, I'm an aspiring writer. I have a packet with me. Like, it would just make me feel better if you took it. Like, you can throw it away. I don't care. And he was like, oh, we're actually going to dinner, and this is usually not how it works. I was like, just take the packet. I just want to walk away and feel like I tried. And he's like, no, it's okay. So I left. I didn't give him the packet. And I remember going in the car and being like, man, I fucking suck. Like, it's never going to happen. I called my buddy who was trying to do the same thing, and I just felt sad. And then I went on Facebook that night, and then I wrote more, like 4 paragraphs of like about my story, about living in Chicago, doing stand-up, taking all these chances or whatever. I wrote him this on Facebook, and he emails me back at 1 a.m., and it has full of grammatical errors. It barely makes sense.
So you think he was drinking?
I think he had a few drinks. He was talking about how like they were watching the montage of what they had done on the show before, or in that first year and a half, and how it was like making him teary-eyed. So I was like, he sounds emotional. And the last like line of that email was, email my assistant, and we'll send over a sheet that you have to sign to be able to submit materials to us. So like you can sue us if we steal it or whatever. And so I was like, awesome. Had 2 days before that then, so I wrote even more stuff. Went into Conan that day, grabbed a letterhead that we did have access to, because then it had Conan's logo on it. Looked like it was a fax from Conan's people, like important, and faxed it over with my packet. And then 3 weeks later, this manager who agreed to work with me, but he wasn't really doing anything for me. He was just like, oh, if something happens, I can like say his manager. I had to put his name on the packet to look official, and they emailed him and said, hey, we want to fly CJ out for an interview. And I got the job from that interview.
That's awesome. That's
crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What did your packet feature? Did you know like exactly what they were looking for? Did you have like X amount of desk pieces, X amount of...
It's so funny. Like, I knew they were big on quotas for monologue jokes. And I read the packet recently, and it's not good. Like, the monologue jokes weren't good. I think there were enough, but I always again, I put myself in the reader's shoes. I was like, say I'm submitting 80 monologue jokes, I'm going to put my strongest ones up first, because they're not going to read all of it. So like, I think I wrote like 80 to 100 monologue jokes. I wrote 10 like desk pieces, 10 just regular sketches, 10 guest segments. So like, what's a comedy piece we would do with a guest? So I just I looked at like the schedule and watched a bunch of shows and saw who was really good on the show as a guest, and just came up with games and sketches for them. So it was just like, again, it was like, what's a packet that we want to make all the jokes in there, or like we don't have to do much training for someone there. So if we hired the person, so that's what I did, and yeah, it worked out.
Perfect. You did your homework. Now, do you think at the time your youth helped being 24 or 23, whatever? Because they probably were like, well, we could get a young guy, diversify the ages here.
Diversify the ages, diversify the ethnicities, I feel like
too, yeah.
I don't even know the guy, but some guy on who used to write for Fallon who's Asian just friended me, and I'm like, man, there really weren't that many Asian people on there. Like, especially what's going on now, I'm like, is something going on over there? But, I don't, I don't find myself to personally needing anything from them or the industry in that way. If anything, I want to fight for maybe future people in my position if I was to speak on that. But yeah, it's weird. Like, I always hated the diversity hire term, even though it put things in my favor.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I originally thought, like, because I kept thinking of writers' rooms as these guys who are a little bit out of touch, and they're like, we
Yeah.
got someone young, this guy's cool,
Yeah.
so more like that. But no, you're right in that regard,
Yeah.
too. These writers' rooms are definitely, I just think you'd want all the different voices so you could cover your ground on stuff, because there's
Yeah.
stuff that Jimmy Fallon and me, being straight white dudes, we can't relate to other people in a lot of
For
shit.
sure.
So I would want someone in there who could help me fill that gap. How many people are in the writers' room? Like, how many writers total are on set?
So I think at the time there were maybe between 15 and 17.
Cool. Any names that people would know?
I mean, the guys who are really doing some big stuff right now are Bashir and Diallo, who have 2 shows on the air right now. They have Sherman's Showcase, which we have some friends who had worked on that, which is a sketch show, a musical sketch show on IFC, and then the South Side on Comedy Central.
Yeah, great show.
And so those guys were prolific when I was there, and they were also a huge help for me. And then trying to think who else was on that show at the time that you might know. Yeah, I mean that's really the people who have come out of there.
Didn't
terms of
Jeselnik write
writers.
for it? For a little
Jeselnik,
bit?
yeah. So like before me was Jeselnik. He was a monologue writer, and yeah, he was part of
he's
that first
perfect
crew.
for that.
Yeah.
Because he's so, like, one-liner-esque in a way.
Exactly.
Would you call him a one-liner comic?
I talked to Megan about this recently. I don't think anymore, but maybe in the beginning.
In the beginning, definitely. Now it's a little bit more stories, but it's still, like, a lot of misdirection. I always
Yeah.
think of one-liners as people who do misdirection in a sense.
Yeah.
Even though it's not technically one line, it's more than one line. Like Hedberg's a classic one-liner type guy. Dimitri Martin
Mm-hmm.
for a stretch, I guess. All right. Well, let me ask you about the NBA bubble. You
Yeah,
excited
man.
about that, dude? The NBA is slated to come back. What, July 31st? I think.
I mean, tomorrow
Oh,
our
that's
scrimmages.
right.
Yeah.
Scrimmages are starting tomorrow. I'm pumped about this. House of Highlights obviously does all sports, and you got like user submitted fun stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
and you got. By the way, everyone, CJ did a great one during the pandemic, during the Last Dance of the
yeah.
Michael Jordan. It's times I dream I have.
Yeah,
big
dress like
jeans.
Mike.
Dress like Mike, because he really did, and he still seems to dress that way. I feel like he doesn't wear anything tight. It's still pretty damn loose.
There's something that happens to these rich guys, and I think they just lose touch. And hey, it looks comfortable.
Well, they're not losing touch. Jordan had a Hitler mustache for like 2 years. People forget that. And then Haynes
But we didn't
commercial, that was
cancel
like
him. We didn't cancel him. He's that good. He's uncancelable.
Well, when you're 6-0 with 10 scoring titles,
Yeah.
and defensive player of the year and MVPs. Anyway, though, we could go into stats all day.
Yeah,
You and I. You and I think both have a thing where you're a giant LeBron James fan. I'm a
yeah.
giant Michael Jordan fan, but my Jordan stuff's on the other side of the basement. But it is. But I'm a big LeBron fan too.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, and this is a social media bullshit algorithm thing, where they show me tweets to piss me off because they know I engage, and when you engage, you stay on that platform. Being a social media expert like yourself, I think you'd probably consider yourself pretty knowledgeable in social media. You know that's the game they play. So I have people who think I hate LeBron James when I very much do not. I rooted for
Yeah.
him to beat the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. I was rooting for that. So whenever people use that to throw in my face, where it's like, he beat a 73 win team, Jordan never would have, I get a little bit like, maybe I shouldn't have rooted for him, because if I was going to get it thrown back in my face when we're talking about the GOAT, I just think Jordan's better. They're both amazing. They're both like 1 and 1A or 1 and 2 or whatever you want to say. But like,
Yeah. In terms of social media, like tweets aren't. I mean, we could say this for most news. Never is it to fully state a fact. It's because social media and all these companies who consider it their business are collecting numbers. They want to, so it's engagement. They want to up engagement. So by calling Jordan or LeBron or Kobe the GOAT, you're just inviting everyone who doesn't agree with that to comment on it and retweet it and say, no, here's my opinion. So like, that's what they're trying to do.
Well, I end up getting stuck talking to the guy who replies underneath going, oh, it's about rings? Well, then Robert Horry's better than Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And it's like nobody would ever say that, dickhead. Robert Horry was a role player. It's rings and stats. Everyone knows that. Why would you fucking say that then? Okay, fine. Anyone with 5 rings is better than LeBron then or whatever. It's just, but it is. It's so much trollness going on with like sports, and that's why I just wish. And I know your buddy Omar's working for ESPN now, and there's a lot of stuff I like about ESPN. There's a lot of hate about ESPN.
Yeah.
But what kills me is ESPN doesn't have like a true competitor. Fox Sports, every one of their personalities to me sucks. I can't stand a single one of them. Nick Wright, I liked his commentary on Kaepernick and some stuff like that, but his basketball, he's always contradicting himself. One week, rings don't matter. The next week, if he wins a ring, it matters. I'm like, well, fucking pick a lane, buddy.
Yeah.
So I get so, and Colin Cowherd is dog shit. I really can't stand that guy. I don't know if he's a buddy of yours and I'm hurting your feelings right now, but
there's a lot of the old white dudes who represented old school sports media over there. Where they do. Shannon Sharp is fun. He's
fun with some stuff, but I think Skip ruins him a little bit.
It's all entertainment first, mostly on these. It's like debate since the age of Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith and these guys. They are putting people on air who can debate, who can represent very, very passionately the audience's opinions and willing to fight that, and they just want to see argument. I'm totally with you on that.
Well, that's where it went from. You mentioned the word entertainment. I used to think of guys like Stuart Scott, R.I.P. He was entertaining first. I don't remember him ever debate. I didn't know his opinions. I just knew he was entertaining with how he packaged highlights.
Yeah.
And that's what I think ESPN's model was for a while. And then now it became this whole talking head thing and news networks do it too. I tell people all the time, one of the big problems we're having in American media is that if I am watching any news network, CNN, and then I do that last channel thing where you can go back and forth, and I do CNN to ESPN, and I go back and forth, they look the same. They've got the whole, hold on, I'm very proud of this. Not proud of this, but it's fun. They got the ticker at the bottom.
Oh, nice.
Right? They got like everything's breaking news, the flashing lights.
First of all, also I want to say I'm very, very impressed with what you've been doing. Just like your YouTube channel is killer, like all this is you're really just like embracing and like getting your shit out there in the smartest way.
Thanks, man.
I tell people about that.
Oh, thank you, dude. Yeah, I'm definitely trying as best as I can. It's I'm enjoying it, and that's all that matters. Really, you can't really control what comes from it afterwards. Just so the listeners know, I just posted a video of a clip from the podcast last week where Lisa Traeger talks about masturbating on a plane. So if you missed last week's podcast, there's a 10-minute clip of Lisa Traeger talking about some funny airplane experiences she's had. So, man, I'm trying to have fun with it. And it's, with stand-up not being around right now, I think I'm just kind of putting my focus on creating content as best as I can. And I've got some web series ideas that I'm putting into the works, and hopefully they extend that unemployment so I could put some more money towards some of this stuff. I actually ordered some better lighting, so it didn't come yet. It's supposed to come by the 24th.
It looks good, though.
Yeah, I'm using an overhead light here, and which I just look directly in, so now I can't see anything. That's what sucks about those lights. If you stare at them too long, it'll fuck up your eyes. Anyway, though, but I was always inspired by the stuff that you did with social media, and you did great stuff with Bleacher Report. I love the memes and everything you created there. That almost sounds like an insult. I love the memes. It sounds like
it sounds like an 8th grader. That's what they do. But like,
and then Megan used to call you Meme Boy or something like that.
Yeah, she just like he makes really good memes, but like and
like,
that's
listen,
the thing
Almond Girl.
Yeah, I know. But if that's what I get paid a decent amount to do that, and so I'm not gonna like be mad about it.
No, how could you? And
like memes, we talk about like monologue jokes. No one thinks a monologue joke is funny anymore, but memes are passed around like crazy, like they're retweeted like crazy, like they genuinely make me laugh, or catch me off guard. So I really enjoy a good meme.
I do too. Memes are one part. There's a lot of social media stuff that I don't like, but there's stuff that I think, man, this is a better world for. Memes I think are great. The ones that are meant for entertaining purposes, and then there's always some good replies in there too. Like this one guy, I give him credit. someone will post like a Michael Jordan statistic. Like on this date, Michael Jordan did this against the Knicks. He dropped 55 and 15 and 7 steals or some insane stat line. And someone will always comment, and for this, Michael Jordan is the second greatest basketball player of all time. Like just knowing that people are going to get pissed off.
Yeah.
And then when someone, like whenever a dude will post like something where it's like you and I are good guys, but there'll always be one of those guys that posts like men are the worst. And there's a guy that will comment underneath, hope she sees this, bro. That will always make me laugh my ass off. Always. Yeah. It's perfect. So the NBA bubble, though, man, this sounds crazy. I feel like there's going to be some really good stories. There should be a documentary in play. Yeah. After The Last Dance, I want that dude who directed The Last Dance, who also directed Iverson's doc, he needs to be embedded in the NBA 24/7 or any sport, because that guy knows how to capture some shit. Like, I'm hoping I heard all the tests came back negative for COVID, which is amazing because the NFL just did a round and it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And by the way, I know some people might be like, oh, only 25 guys. But 25 will infect fucking 1,500 in a week. Come on. Like, people need to pay attention to some of this stuff. What do you think? Do you think it's all going to work out? Or do you think
I think it is. I mean, but honestly, this is a very, very new feeling. I was very excited, and then obviously like the George Floyd and Black Lives Matter movement started, and I was like, we can't be going back to sports. And so like the focus is on that, and it still is. But I was like, I was like, I'm gonna let the players and what they are out there saying kind of dictate my feelings, because like those guys, I want them to be healthy, and I want them to be able to forward that message. And they all assured themselves and each other and the media at this point that they will. And like Black Lives Matters on the court, the social justice message on the back. Every single like post-conference or like post-practice press conference, they mention it. So like that's all good. And then this test happened, 0. Now, and Popovich, who's one of the smartest people I think like I listened to, he said like the bubble is safer. And in a way, yes, like cases go up in LA where a lot of these guys live in the off season, but they're in the bubble now. And so like tested every 20 feet.
It makes a lot of sense to have them all in one place, and then you can monitor who's coming in and out. That totally makes sense to me. You have to look at it like it's its own sovereignty, its own country. There's a reason we're only allowed as Americans to go to 28 countries right now.
Yeah.
And I looked at the list. I would say 22 of them you would never want to go to ever anyway.
Yeah.
No offense to some of these countries that I can't remember right now, but it's just the truth of it. You don't exactly are known for any of these. No one goes honeymooning to some of these places, but
right.
But to have them all in one spot, and I actually kind of find it funny Orlando, because look, no offense to Orlando, without Disney, no one's living there. I mean, it's hot as fuck because it's the middle of Florida.
Yeah.
It's not near an ocean really, so I feel like that's the way to go.
No, that's the Florida Project. That it's about that. It's about a rundown complex like 8 miles away from Disney World.
Yeah, it was cheap land.
Yeah.
So I am the only thing I'm finding funny though is I know it's some women admitted I was only kidding. Someone tweeted like, I've already been invited 7 times to this fucking bubble or whatever, and then she was like, I'm fucking joking. Calm down, everybody.
But that's the thing, that there'll be issues like that, and like you got to understand, these are grown men who have families or have an outside of basketball life, and that's where I really sympathize with them. And if some of these guys can't take it, then they should have the option to leave, and they shouldn't be criticized or have their pay docked, because these are unusual circumstances. And I think the world will see an uptick in optimism because of basketball in sports. I mean, I don't watch baseball that much, but man, I loved seeing new highlights last night of baseball. And it looked strange with no one in the stands, and it wasn't a league game, or it wasn't a regular season. But like, I just like, with us, you can't do stand up. I can't get out there and really produce stuff fully. These guys are getting out there to go and do the thing that they feel they were put on this earth to do. After months and months of being cooped in, very active things, and they're getting to do that, and so they're gonna have some joy, and like I hope we can too.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of sports coming back, even without any fans. It's like some sort of like it's a little bit of a light. It's not a big light, but it's some light at the end of this tunnel that's been COVID-19, where you're like, all right, at least there's some semblance of being normal. Oh, fuck yeah. This is something I actually meant to text you. So I got excited about this because our lives have changed so much. I was thinking, the Cubs' first game was Friday, so I was like texting my brother, like, oh, come on by. I just upgraded the TV in the house.
Nice, yeah.
65-inch. Almost got the 70, but I admit it would be too big for the
65
wall.
65 is great.
65 is great. But you have like a fucking outdoor theater set up in your yard.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me now, but remind me off air. Tell me like what model you got, because
well, the Daltons were the ones who turned me on to this model, and it's perfect.
Is it like super expensive or is it?
No, it's $250, which I think is great.
Perfect. No, yeah, because I looked at like the $100 ones. I'm like, that's too cheap. There's no way it's not.
No,
that
because
good.
it'll probably work. The $100 one might work a little bit, but like $250 and like the Daltons have had theirs for months, and like if I get a year use out of this thing, it was worth it.
Oh, I think so for sure. Yeah. No, so I got the backyard, and then you got like the drop screen thing, right?
Yeah.
What do you even call that? A projection screen, I guess.
Yeah, projector screen.
Those aren't too bad, right?
No, they range from like $70 to like $200.
Okay, not too bad.
Everything I like, and I put some extra stuff into it just to make it nice, like really, really nice, and it all came under $450.
Pretty good. So okay, as soon as I shoot and killed the skunk that I saw a couple nights ago, I'm gonna do something in my backyard like this.
Yeah, there's Megan and I have watched. Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just saying I live in the city, but I'm off the highway, so I think skunks come through. Yeah. And then my one neighbor told me that there's an old lady up the block that feeds this family of skunks. Dude, I can't. I've seen the skunk on my front lawn. I saw it one time in the yard. Like I don't want to kill an animal, but
no, I would say just put a few lights around you, like a couple tiki torches, just to show. I don't think they want to hurt you.
I'm too white to be buying tiki torches, though. There's a whole thing with those racists buying tiki torches. They ruin tiki torches for white guys who like to wear khaki shorts in the summer. I'm a khaki short guy,
I saw this white supremacist group trying to ruin Hawaiian shirts, and I was like, you will not take that from me.
No, hell no, man. I love fucking Hawaii.
I need a Hawaiian shirt, especially when I gain a few pounds. I think Jared Logan has a joke of just like every fat funny guy, the uniform is like a Hawaiian shirt, and he's right. It's comfy.
No, he's not wrong, man. He's not wrong. You were saying, so you and Megan have watched, like, what movies you were going to say you watched?
No, we were watching Palm Springs the other night, and a giant raccoon walked by. But he like looked at me and like kind of waved, and I was like,
did he
don't be scared." He like saw us and it was like, kind of embarrassed because he kind of just like went to the side, and Megan got kind of freaked out and she left. So like you have to be prepared for any of that type of stuff to happen.
Dude, LA has raccoons. My wife, when we were living in Burbank, saw like a whole family of them run up a tree once when she was walking our dog. Yeah, LA's got all the animals. Dude, we just got lizards in our house.
Yeah, I mean, lizards, coyotes are kind of scary. Luckily, we have a fence, but yeah, I mean, it's.
I saw, like, when my dog was a puppy, I was worried about coyotes because at the time I was living by the Hollywood Bowl, and I would walk her, like, around, like, kind of like the hills, I guess. I think it was called the Hollywood Dell over there because it was just to, like, the west of the 101 or the east of the 101. And I remember one time seeing a coyote from behind. The coyote didn't see me, and my dog was a puppy, and I, like, tucked her under my arm like a football and just sprinted the other way. But now, dude, my dog's like 85, 90 pounds, and she would fuck up a coyote.
Wow.
And like, ask Megan, because my dog used to sleep on Megan's bed when she lived with us. And dude, she's a feminist. My dog's a strong feminist. She's alpha female. She pees with one leg up because she doesn't believe in the patriarch. She's fucking tough as shit, man.
Do you think a little bit of Megan rubbed off on her?
No, because Megan's not tough at all. Like, dude, she's not.
So she fed her the cheese slices. That's one of my favorite stories.
Oh, yeah, I told that. So at Megan and CJ's wedding the night before, again, you guys even had a kick-ass rehearsal dinner.
Oh, it was so fun.
It was bowling. It was a bowling party. You had a bowling party, which is so cool. At like a real, like, kind of cool, vintagey looking bowling alley. One that I would not have expected to see in Palm Springs.
It's not vintage. That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. You're right. It wasn't like designed vintage. It was just old bowling alley. Because in my brain, I think a Palm Springs bowling alley is going to look like a fancy Lucky Strike type of bowling alley. But no, it looked like your typical, like almost like a southwest side of Chicago bowling alley type of thing, where it's like, family owned or something. It was great. And so I like emceed it where I brought up the people who were giving speeches that night.
You killed it.
And, oh, thanks. I felt fat that day though, man, for some reason. Dude, I looked at a picture and I had like a gut going. I'd put on some weight going into that, which I wanted to lose because I'm like, I got a wedding coming up.
Yeah.
All you skinny fucking LA people where it's like you're in shape every day. I'm in a Chicago winter with 2 kids, and I was like, you bastards.
I'm 10 pounds up since the weddings, if that makes you feel any better.
Well, I'm okay. I lost a little bit, and then I kind
Nice.
of gained it back a little bit, so I'm going back and forth. I just need to lose. If I lose, 5 pounds is all it takes for me to look like puffy on my way to looking like a fucking Kennedy you could just shoot their big fat fucking Nick head.
Dude,
or
another...
I look like a fucking swelt, not swelt, what's the word, svelte? That's the word, where it's a little bit more. I get the chin looking better when I lose.
But you have a great joke, which I think of very logically, is the puking. After a night of drinking in that puke, you just look gaunt, and the abs, I'm like, I experienced that. I'm like, if I need to lose an extra few pounds, I'll just only drink whiskey and skip dinner.
Dude, hell yeah, man. And dude, vomiting was good for your abs, and then you look so good the next day.
Yeah.
It's almost like how when you have a cold, your voice sounds sexy.
Yeah.
Like, I can't sing at all, but every now and then I'll get like a cold at a certain level, and I'll sound like young John Lennon, where it's like, oh man, he could hit the high note. That's cool.
Yeah.
A little nasally, but like it works, like that type of thing. So, dude, yeah, at your wedding, I told a story about how Megan, I can't believe when Megan was on the podcast, I can't believe this didn't come up. She was hammered drunk one night, and I think I might have been out with her earlier, but she was talking to herself in the kitchen, and we could hear, we never slept, like, it was a 2-bedroom apartment, and Megan would always sleep with her door shut like adults do. We couldn't because my dog would like to get up and go to different parts of the apartment, so we'd always leave our door like cracked open just enough so our dog could get in and out. And I could just hear Megan talking to herself. And my wife's like, is she asking us something? I'm like, no, she's talking to herself. Shut, she's drunk. Like, I didn't want Megan to hear us laughing in the next room because she's just going on and on like, you're doing okay. I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. Like, she was giving herself a pep talk. Like, no, everything's great in life. I'm doing okay. People like me. They do. They really like me. And I was like, it was just funny, like because it was one person talking, but she was changing her voice as if it was.
She does that
people
still.
talking.
Yeah, I've seen it happen before.
And then in the morning, my wife had to get up early. She's, nurses wake up early. She just tells me like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And I see it in my dog's bowl. And my dog went out there, so she was like having conversations with my dog. Is like a stack like this high. Everyone watching on YouTube will see. Listening on audio, you're not gonna get it. Of like 12 to 13 craft singles, still wrapped in the dog bowl. And I know at one point I heard her saying, one for me, one for you, one for me, one for you, like that type of thing. And it just made me laugh because she stacked them so neatly, where the rest of the kitchen was an unorganized mess, like things were, and we didn't give a fuck. I'm a slob, and my wife isn't that clean either. So it's not like we were one of those roommates where it's like, oh my God, look at this fucking kitchen. We didn't give a shit.
Right.
But it was funny that it was a mess, except that was like neatly. There wasn't like stacked like a stack leaning one way or another. It was like she put some effort into it.
Well, so that's what,
man.
you know when people say like you're drunk, when you're drunk or blacked out, that's when like your honest self comes out.
Yeah.
And people are like, when they hear that story, I feel like some people are probably like, wow, what a drunk. But in my head, I'm like, no, she likes to take care of people. She likes to take care, like, she's feeding the dog. Like, yeah, that's what, so I always find that as like a very endearing, like, why I love her type story.
No, hell yeah, I would agree with you. That is I would be proud to be married to that woman. So good move, CJ. I always had the relationship with Megan living together, and we've had this being friends from back in the Chicago days when all three of us were running around the north side doing shows, was that when she gets too high, I got to bring her down a little bit. When she get too low, I'd bring her up.
Great.
And so when I heard that conversation she was having by herself, I'm like, oh, she doesn't need me anymore. This bird's ready to fly. Because I think she was still only a couple months into living in LA at the time or whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, man. I don't want to hold you for too long. I got a couple things I wanted to hit for you. Let's go. NBA predictions. Who's getting the MVP this year?
I think LeBron will. I don't know how much I agree on it, but I think he will.
I think he's having a great year, but I think Giannis deserves it, to be honest with you.
I think I wouldn't be mad either way, but you think about the way that these things are voted for, and a lot of it is narrative. I think Giannis won it last year, but all eyes are on the Lakers, for unfortunate reasons too, like because Kobe and the fact that they're number one in the West. They went from not making the playoffs, and yes, they got AD, but like,
which is
there's
huge.
been a lot of
He's having a
obstacles.
big year.
Yeah.
Some people think AD will win Defensive Player of the Year.
And that's who I think there's no one who deserves it more than him.
I would agree with. I mean, he's a top 5 player in the league.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we just said Defensive Player of the Year. Who's your Rookie of the Year?
John Morant.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
He's been fantastic.
I think Zion could have, but like, yeah, John Morant.
Didn't play enough games and minutes,
Yeah.
and I just can't give it to someone who doesn't play the full. It's a regular season award, so it's about the regular season.
Yeah.
Which I've told people in the past. I remember getting in an argument about that. The one year that was it Westbrook won. Westbrook or Harden won, I think. I can't remember. But some people were saying, well, what about LeBron or Kawhi? And that was the year where both LeBron and Kawhi were doing load management.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's a regular season award. I mean, you can't be taking off games and win this award to me. You can't miss 12 games for LeBron and 15 for Kawhi and win this award when the other guy is playing every single day. I think it was when Westbrook won. Granted, he's not as efficient. He was, 43% field goal percentage compared to LeBron's, which that year was like 54, 55. But then again, who were his options in Oklahoma City there? You're going to have a weaker field goal percentage when more of the bulk scoring is relied on you,
Right.
That's the thing that's why once Kevin Durant, who's still an amazing player, I mean, now he's hurt, but I thought as soon as KD joined Golden State, neither him or Steph could win an MVP.
No.
You can't win an MVP when there's no pressure on you to do the thing you do best.
And I changed my mind on the Heat, but I don't know if I'll ever change my mind on the Warriors like deserving those titles with KD.
Yeah, I mean, the one argument that I've heard that is correct is that it's not correct, but I could see why the person who made the argument believed what they believed. Golden State before KD was all draft picks. Mm-hmm. It was just a team that was drafted incredibly well. Their one free agent happened to be an MVP.
I put that on.
Had an MVP. So,
Yeah.
it was a bad look for KD to leave OKC to join a team that had just won a title, just lost after winning 73 games. They won 73 games without him, and then they joined. Everyone was like, they're going to win 80 games. This is video game bullshit.
Yeah.
This totally sucks. But that's just the way, and it started with the Heat. I know people want to go back to the Celtics Big Three, but even that was 2 trades and 1 signing.
Yeah.
So I think, and look, LeBron got way too much flack for the decision. That raised a lot of money. It wasn't a good look in some sense, but I feel like a lot of that was overblown. I think what happened there, though, was it made it so that other players, other free agents were like, well, this is just what we got to do. We got to level up in a sense. And they even tried it, LA tried it. The league screwed them on that one trade, and then later they got Dwight Howard and Steve Nash, Steve Nash at the time everyone knew was kind of going to his last year, so they were hoping for one more good year out of him. But he was 37, I think, when that trade happened. And then Dwight Howard. I've never seen an athlete fall off a cliff the way Dwight Howard did.
He got paid, and he felt like there was not much to prove. He thought they could have went on cruise control, and that was the complete opposite.
Yeah. Can you think of anyone else who was like that elite who then just went down without a major injury? Because he never had a major injury.
No one like him. No one like him.
I really can't think of anyone else like him. All right, so you did your awards. Who's winning it all?
I think it's going to be the Clippers.
Okay.
But I want it to be the Lakers, but I think it's going to be the Clippers.
Who are they beating in the finals?
The Bucks.
Yeah, I like the Bucks too. My cousin texted saying he likes Miami Heat as a sleeper team. But I don't know.
I have the Raptors as a sleeper team.
That would be cool. I kind of root for that narrative of the team that's like, look, we love Kawhi. We understood why he left, but we still want to show up and still prove that we're worth it, Because there was a lot of people who thought so many of their guys who had big years were flukes.
I just think they are, kind of like what the Spurs were to me. I know they lost Kawhi. I also think some weird things could happen, whether like family obligations or weird stuff. It's gonna be different. I wouldn't put money on the Raptors, but like that's who I'd want, and I think could do something kind of crazy and surprising.
Well, dude, this is what's fun about sports in 2020, which has been such a fucking awful year in life in general, is that every sport is like up for grabs in a sense.
Yeah.
And we're kind of just like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's try that. Like baseball's doing a thing where extra innings, it's going to start with a runner at second base. So, all right, it's tied 3-3 after 9. 10th inning, the away team's leading off. You got a guy at second base to start the inning.
Has anyone ever done that? Has that started anywhere else?
They tried it like at lower level minor leagues to like mix response. Some people liked it. Some people were like, "Oh, we'll just leave it the way it is. Extra innings are kind of fun." But they're doing it because it's a shorter season, less days off. They don't want to risk injuries to pitching staffs. They don't want 17-inning games. So they're like, let's speed this up. They're adding the DH to both leagues now, which I think is something that's long overdue. It never made sense as a sport to me to have one league have a certain set of rules and another league not, but then these two leagues face for the ultimate crown. That's weird.
Yeah.
It would be like if the AFC had field goals, but the NFC didn't. That's what the equivalent is. Or the East had 3-pointers, but the West didn't. They're like, it's a stupid rule.
Well, they changed the All-Star game this year, and right after that is when the world went to shit. We finally had an amazing All-Star game, and the world was like, that's not supposed to happen.
I know. It's fucked up, man. Anyway, I enjoyed the All-Star game this year. And you worked on the All-Star game in Chicago that year.
I did a little bit of stuff.
I was sick. I tried to meet up with you, but I was sick that whole week. I thought I had COVID. I'm still wondering if I did. Maybe I should they're finding the antibody test isn't that reliable. It's not accurate. It's really not, and it doesn't matter as much as what they believe.
Yeah.
I'm related to nurses, my wife obviously, and doctors, and so I get some information from them. And I did a whole podcast where I told everyone, no, this thing's real. I talked to people who work in these hospitals, and then they do the whole thing where it's like, well, what if someone has this and this? They're marking it as a COVID death anyway. I'm like, okay, dude, they mark it as multiple stuff, because there was a whole thing where someone's like, this guy had stage 4 cancer, but then he got COVID, so they're saying it's a COVID death. They go, well, technically it is.
Yeah.
Because maybe he would have lived another 6 months, but he got COVID, so he died then.
There
you go. Anyway. All right, I've been doing this thing where I end the podcast asking people's favorites. I now call this the Joe Kilgallon podcast. It's also AKA Kilgallon's Pub. I changed it to Joe Kilgallon podcast just for simple YouTube search reasons. And I do alcohol-related favorites. So, CJ, if you could have one shot the rest of your life, what's that shot going to be?
Probably Makers.
Makers.
Yeah,
I like that.
Makers guy.
Good.
Marty DeRosa put me onto that years and years ago.
Marty's a good guy for that because they're good for old fashions and they're good for Manhattans. And it's 90 proof, so it's a little bit stronger than your average whiskey.
Yeah.
It's a good bourbon right there. Okay, next, if you could do one mixed drink the rest of your life, what's it going to be?
Moscow Mule.
You're a Moscow Mule guy?
I was a little bit before this, but pandemic, we'll buy the mixes or we just buy some ginger beer, and it's so easy to make. I mean, it's alcoholic Gatorade, you know?
That is, okay, that's a good way to spin it. I like that. Alcoholic Gatorade. All right, you could drink one beer the rest of your life. What's that beer going to be?
I'm not that big of a beer guy, but I like a Pacifico.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Pacifico, and I also, when I first started drinking, which was a little bit later than most people at 22, a big Heineken from the Lodge. Remember those
huge mugs that Mary would give you?
There's something about that. I gotta maybe find just a giant mug like that and just pour myself a giant Heineken like that.
I did like those. From Mary was nice too, older Irish woman.
Because back then, I don't know if you'd go and hang out at the Lodge, and maybe you knew some of the comics, maybe you didn't really know anyone to hang out with just yet, and you'd get one of those, and it was like the drink in your hand, and you're ready, like, hey, I'm down to hang out. What are you guys up to? Like, just that feeling I really miss.
I do miss a good mug. I haven't had my hand on a good mug in a long time. I should order some Frosty.
Have you ever seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Did you see that?
I haven't seen it yet, but I got the screener upstairs. I've been waiting forever. This is what's going to happen when you have kids as a movie guy.
Yeah.
You two will still watch movies, but you're going to look at the running time.
Yeah. That's a long one.
Yes. There's been a few times where her and I have gotten together to watch movies, and I'm like, all right, let's see. We got to get through some of these screeners that we got here. And I'm like, we're clocking in a little over 3 hours. And it's just like, no, you know. And it gets a little tougher like that. The only movies we've been watching is I created a shortcut to get her to see Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, because she hasn't seen. We kind of followed along up to Age of Ultron, but then she hadn't seen all these other movies, and I'm like, well, you got to see these. So I came up with a shortcut that some people could maybe try.
Yeah.
She saw up to Age of Ultron, so she knew enough there. We watched Civil War, because Civil War introduces Black Panther and Ant-Man. So then we don't have to watch Black Panther and Ant-Man. Although those are great movies and maybe later, but I want to get to this, you know. Then we watched Thor Ragnarok. Fucking
one of my
awesome.
favorites, yeah.
So good. And that introduces Doctor Strange as well. Mm-hmm. So then there you go. And then the end credits scenes, Thanos' ship shows up.
Yeah.
Now we're going to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp. So she already knows who Ant-Man is, so she doesn't need to see Ant-Man 1. So skipping to the sequel is fine.
But the sequel sucks.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, you're right, wasn't as strong as regular Ant-Man.
Yeah.
But I think it's enjoyable enough. I think she'd like it a lot. We're both Walter Goggins fans, and he's in some of it. So we'll dig it. And and the end scene, though, you need to see the end credits, though, scene for that.
I don't think I remember it.
And the end credits is when he goes into the, what do they call that? The quantum realm. He goes into the quantum realm, and they're supposed to pull him up, but then they disappear because of the whole snap. The Thanos snap. Spoiler alert, everybody. And then after that, we could watch Infinity War. And then, then we watched, I forgot, I showed her both Guardians of the Galaxies.
Oh, nice.
I think both of those are awesome.
One of my favorite things to YouTube is Thor's hammer. When Captain America gets Thor's hammer, reaction. So just type in that reactions on YouTube, and you can watch theaters across the world, people just fucking going nuts, and it's amazing.
Dude, I talked about it last week on the podcast. not with Lisa.
Yeah.
I've been doing 2 podcasts a week. I did one with Lisa Traeger and then one with Ed Towns. He's a really cool comedian in Chicago. We talked about how that was like a Game 7 type reaction.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to stand up. I don't think I did, but I wanted to stand up. It kind of like brings tears to my eyes when I'm like high and I watch it just on YouTube. It's such a badass scene.
Did you cry at the end of Endgame?
No, but I really enjoyed it. It was one of my like most fun movies I've seen in theaters.
Do you cry at movies ever?
I only when I'm so high. I cried
Okay.
the last time, or the one time I really remember crying in a movie was just I teared up when I went and saw Wayne's World at the Music Box back in like 2010 or 2012, and seeing it in film on a giant screen. Just the font and like the music and the audio just was like, I can't believe I'm seeing this in Chicago. Like it was such a cool experience.
I saw Wayne's World in the theater like the weekend it came out when I was a kid.
Wow. Yeah.
I was 7 in 1992, I think, or some shit.
They passed by Chicago Joe's. Like,
dude, which is such a cool spot for us.
Yeah.
All right. So I only asked if you cried other movies because I never cried at movies.
Okay.
I think I teared up at The Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah. It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. But I was never a crier. Since my kids have been born, really, I think it started when the Cubs won the World Series because I cried then.
Yeah.
But really, since my kids have been born, I cry at movies like all the time now. Even at a few movies where people are like, are you really getting teary-eyed right now? Dude, that scene in Dumb and Dumber when he's looking out the window. Oh, my God, dude. When he's looking out the window.
Yeah.
And he says to Harry, he goes, you know what I'm sick and tired of? I'm sick and tired of being nobody. And most of all, I'm sick and tired of having nobody. And the way he does it, and he's like, I'm sick and tired of eking my way through life. Obviously, I can't act the way Jim Carrey can.
Right.
But, like, maybe I could if I really studied. But no, I'm fucking around. Dude, I don't know why, but I always got sad at that scene. And
Well,
I know
it's
Dumb
'cause
and
you
Dumber's like a
can't.
funny movie.
Yeah.
But
It's like you have kids, and me too, with like getting married, like it unlocks something. It chips away.
marriage unlocks something. Kids unlock a whole new set of these emotions because you start to get like the flashbacks to when like things happened to you as a kid, and you're like, oh, I don't want that to happen to my kid.
Yep.
And then you start to think, well, it's life. I can't protect him from everything.
Yeah.
Some people are going to be mean to him, and that's just part of it, and he's going to have to learn how to overcome that and all that kind of stuff. And then I get to the point where it's like, well, why can't I protect him from everything? Who gives
Yeah.
a fuck? Life's short. I'm more than happy to protect him from everything. I don't care. Oh, am I going to die knowing that I made sure my kid had a great life? I don't know. Like, I could go back and forth on that because I had to grow up kind of fast in some senses. You know, my
Yeah.
parents divorced when I was really young. I grew up in Chicago. Like, I grew up in a pretty good neighborhood, but it had some gang activity. Like, it was a very mixed blue collar neighborhood. Most of my friends lived in apartments. We lived in apartments when we were 10, and then my dad remarried and bought like a typical Chicago bungalow, which I love. It's a great house.
Yeah.
But I went to Chicago public grade school. Then I went to a Catholic high school. So I always teetered on that like bridge of middle to lower middle class and then middle to upper middle class, like that range,
Yeah.
Like, dude, I remember going to a kid's birthday party when I was like in 6th grade. Dude, there was 6 or 7 people living in a 1-bedroom basement apartment.
Damn.
And I remember just being like, where the fuck do everyone sleep? Because we were only in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like we'd go into their apartment to use the bathroom if we had to. And I just remember being like, all right, there's the kitchen. I think that's the living room. Here's the bathroom. Where the fuck is everyone else stay? It was just one of those.
Yeah.
There was a few like kind of sad situations like that though. All right, man. One more question.
Okay.
Or two more. I'm sorry. Drunk food. What's your favorite drunk food?
I'm trying to think, like specific or just like the type.
Like if you're like good night out and you're feeling it and you're like, I need to get something to eat.
It used to be Burrito House in Chicago, and I know I just like talking about Chicago with you, but truly, I couldn't replicate it because I would get a burrito and nachos, and just like they had just like the right thing to hit.
LA's got great Mexican food too.
Yeah, I found some good spots out here in our neighborhood. That are like pizza, Domino's.
Okay,
really
cool.
Good.
No,
Yeah.
that's good. I mean, when I asked Lisa Traeger this question, and sorry I keep mentioning Lisa, everybody. I'm not trying to plug last week's episode, but she's good friends with both of ours. She went from burrito, and then she asked me mine, and I said French toast, and she's like, "Oh fuck, I want breakfast food now." And so I made her switch to like breakfast food stuff.
Going to a diner when you're drunk, it's great. Such
It
a
is
good
so
move.
much fun.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Historical / famous person. Historical almost makes it seem like a world leader, but it doesn't have to be. Any famous dead person you'd want to get drunk with? That's a big question, so take your time.
John Hughes.
Oh, fucking right away. You nailed it, dude.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I always think about that. Yeah. John Hughes died same summer that my dad died, and I'm always like, there's just something about it. I don't even know how to connect it aside from the proximity of date, but I'm like, damn.
What would you ask him? What would you ask John?
Just how he did it. Dude, I mean, again, he was like Ferris. I know we talked a long time about this, but like one of the greatest stories was that he's working at an ad agency and flights were cheap back then. And the Harvard, or the National Lampoon was a satirical newspaper, and they had an office in New York, and he used to just put a cup of coffee on his desk to look like he was in the bathroom, and he'd fly to New York for the day. And he'd hang out at that office. And eventually they let him write for him, and then vacation, all that stuff. So
it really, his body of work from 1979 to 1992 is really insane.
Yeah.
Everybody, this man wrote Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
Uncle Buck. Again, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Breakfast Club, 16
Great Outdoors.
Candles, Great Outdoors. I mean, Home Alone 1 and 2. Like, it's just the Christmas Vacation, like you said. It's just really, I'm sure we're missing a few. Whenever I talk to John Hughes with people later or the next day, I'll go, fuck, how did I not mention that movie? It's just endless.
We talked about people who hate Ferris Bueller. There is a movie that I love that not many people love. I think it was written and produced by Hughes, not directed by him, called Career Opportunities. And it is about a town liar who everyone knows sucks. So it's like if you hate Ferris, imagine Ferris in a world where everyone knows he's a liar, cheater, stupid, and like doesn't get away with anything, but he just keeps trying to perform these stunts. It's about him in Target.
Yeah, he's trapped in a fucking Target.
Yep.
Oh my God, I was talking about this movie not that long ago with someone, and we couldn't think of the name. What's the actress? She's young.
Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly's like
she's
18.
A babe in it. Yeah.
I think she's 19, 20 maybe.
Well, no.
I'm hoping she's 19 or 20.
Yeah,
We gotta make her
me
a little
too.
older. Although when I saw the movie, to be fair, everyone, I was like 12, or even younger than that, because the movie came out like in the late 80s. I was born in 84, so I was probably. I remember seeing it specifically when I was like 10 or 11, right around the age where I'm like, oh, I like women. There is a scene where these old stores like the Kmart's and Targets used to have like little merry-go-rounds. You put a quarter in and the kid goes around it. This one was like a horse. And like they kind of like, like a, I don't know what you'd call it, like not like a raging bull type of thing, but it was like a horse that goes up and down. Google or YouTube that scene, everybody, because it is one of the hottest scenes in cinematic history, in my opinion.
It's also a good movie that I think, but yeah, it is.
No,
that scene in particular.
Sucks. That scene's amazing. No, I can't remember if it's a good movie or not. I think I liked it as a kid though. I've only seen it like the one time, and that scene's been etched in my brain though, man.
Yeah.
All right, good round. Let me ask you this: if you have time, do you want to do a little bonus for the Patreon?
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll do a little fuck, marry, kill because you're a movie guy.
Okay.
Here's what I do differently. Everybody, you're gonna have to subscribe to the Patreon for this. I reach into my big bin of DVDs because we moved some furniture around, so I threw a bunch of old DVDs in this big bin. I blindly reach in, pull out 3 DVDs. Those are the characters for your choices of who you'd fuck, marry, or kill.
Nice.
Kind of classic American game that I do it in a little slightly different way of how I choose the people you're going to bang. Anyway, CJ, tell everyone where they can find you, follow you. What should they check out of yours?
At CJ Toledano on everything. And then Megan and I, my wife, have a sports podcast with iHeartRadio where it's called The Greatest. And essentially every episode we debate the greatest of all time of a certain sports category. So like greatest comeback, we haven't done like greatest athlete, but like greatest duos, greatest beefs, stuff like that. So
yeah, no, it's really fun. It's such a great title for a podcast. Yeah. It's pretty endless. I now remember we talked about Tom Hanks in the very beginning of Castaway, how his hair turned blonde.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? 4 years of just the sun beating down on you, maybe you could turn blonde. I would like to research that.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to look into it is I read a really interesting thing. Like, look, everyone, I am like the whitest person on the planet. It's super pasty. I have 2 sons. My one son, my eldest son, he's got my pastiness, where when people see them, they go, holy shit, he's as white as you are. He might be whiter. My other son, Dylan, is white, but he's got Nicole's skin, so he's a shade or 2 darker than me and my other son. Anyway, I mention this because I read a thing where even the whitest people in the world like me, if I were to move my family to the Congo in the middle of Africa near the equator, after 1,000 years, my offspring's offspring, the descendants of me from moving to Africa, would be as dark as like Manute Bull.
Wow.
Because that's just everything is cosmetic, everybody. So like the whole idea of hating people for skin color really is the stupidest thing ever.
Bill Nye there's a viral clip of Bill Nye going around where he explains a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think I had the sound up. I think Rex Chapman's Twitter shared that. What do you think about Rex Chapman on Twitter?
I love him.
I love it too.
At first I was like, what is this guy trying to do? But man, he has a really great story. And
he does.
I think he's done it long enough and he's put his twist on it, and like I think he's really good.
I saw him get criticized for like regurgitating other people's material, but I'm like he's retweeting. It's like you get credit. You can see who the original poster was.
Well, and Omar gets the same criticism, but it is like you're a curator. Like he's not retweeting or posting the bad videos, so it's not like he knows exactly what people are gonna like.
Yeah, you become like a hub. You become like a hub for something, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, and you always get permission. Every now and then I'll see something where House of Highlights will comment, hey, can we get permission, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think it's all legit. But everyone definitely check out The Greatest. I've listened to a few episodes. I really like it. I think it's a really cool concept.
We got to have you on. Think of your category that you'd want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to stick away from like any like Jordan LeBron stuff because that's like too obvious. Obviously,
I don't know. Like yeah, I would always be down.
I know you would be, but Megan would probably call me an idiot after a while. But no, it'd be really fun. Everyone, I like the episode you guys do with Megan's parents. Are really cool.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really cool concept. I've listened to all of them, but Sarah Tiana's episode was good.
Yeah.
That was stadium food, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We try to keep it a little evergreen.
That made me hungry, man. No, that's what's smart. That's what you guys are doing. That's smart. Kevin Bozeman and I, you know Kevin Bozeman?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great comedian. We were talking about doing one. Me and him wanted to do one because he had just did, like the first 2 weeks of quarantine, he did his top 25 NBA players of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, and he wrote like almost little essays about why he chose them,
Great.
why they weren't higher, which is a cooler thing, a spin of doing like a top whatever list. And it was really detailed and really cool because he's a gambler too.
Yeah.
So he's got like that gambler's memory where it's like, let me tell you how he fucked me. And like, I don't know, it was really fun. And I was telling him, I'm like, dude, you should have filmed yourself doing these. These could have been 2-minute clips for Instagram or whatever.
Right.
I just think, because his insight was amazing and it was entertaining. I'm like, yeah, these would have taken off if you would have done this, other than just, because he just made them as Facebook posts, I think. And then he was like, well, let's work on something. Let's come up with an idea. And then we were trying to do something. And I'm like, well, CJ and Megan have that. And then we were talking about doing like a Mount Rushmore podcast where we name our Mount Rushmore stuff. But now people want to tear down Mount Rushmore. And then I think there's also a podcast called the Mount Rushmore podcast. But they haven't done a new podcast since like 2018. So I want to be like, hey, give us the fucking name, dude.
Yeah.
If you're going to fucking leave it blank. Anyway,
I support all that stuff.
Yeah, man. All right. But aren't you CJ HOH on Instagram?
Not anymore.
Or CJ Toledano?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Everyone check out CJ Toledano and everything. Support the Patreon. My latest album you can listen to for free on Spotify or buy it on Apple. Whatever you want to do. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way. Everyone, thank you for listening to the Joe Kilgallon podcast.